She never planned to love him. Not with his name stamped on every billboard in Chicago. Not when he belonged to another woman. But heartbreak doesn't always arrive with warning signs. Sometimes it shows up in an elevator at 6:03 a.m. with perfect posture and cufflinks engraved in gold. And sometimes it leaves you pregnant, alone, and trying to forget a man who keeps knocking. Welcome to Mr. Charles Stories. If you've ever trusted someone who made you question your own worth, this one is for you. Let's get into it. The early hours were always Asher Langley's favorite. Downtown Chicago hadn't quite woken up yet. The streets below still yawned in silence. There were no blaring horns, no crowded crosswalks, just the quiet hum of elevators and the soft echo of her flats on marble tile. She arrived at the Valor Industries building like she always did, 15 minutes early. She liked the stillness before the storm of schedules, investor calls, and back-to-back meetings. At 28, Asher had made a habit of hiding in plain sight. Sharp, efficient, and always calm, she was the assistant everyone relied on, but no one really noticed. And she liked it that way. But that morning, she noticed him. Or rather, she couldn't not notice him. The elevator doors opened, and there he was, Callan Valor. Tall, focused, too well put together for someone whose net worth doubled most hedge funds. He didn't look at her when he entered. He rarely did. He was always reviewing something on his phone, voice notes playing in one ear. Still, something felt different that day. Asher pretended not to watch him. But as the elevator ascended, she caught his reflection in the stainless steel wall. His jaw was clenched tighter than usual. His brows drawn together, sharp suit, but tired eyes. When the doors opened on the executive floor, he paused. "You always get here this early?" Asher blinked, surprised. "Yes. I like the quiet." He nodded once, lips twitching at the corners. "Makes two of us." That was it. Just 7 words. But that was the first time he'd spoken to her outside of a meeting. Her desk overlooked Lake Michigan, but Asher rarely looked out the window. She preferred order, clean lines, a full to-do list. That morning, though, she was distracted. His voice echoed. The way he said it. Quiet, like her answer mattered. By noon, she convinced herself it was nothing. By Friday, he was standing at her desk with a file in hand asking her to proofread a presentation that wasn't even on her schedule. "I trust your eye," he said. She didn't know what startled her more, his voice again, or the fact that he remembered her name without looking. They didn't talk every day, but when they did, it lingered. Asher had seen powerful men up close before, men who barked orders and praised themselves. But Callan wasn't loud. He didn't boast. He moved like a storm that had already passed, quiet but undeniable. Their interactions stayed professional, until one late night in the office changed everything. It was a Thursday. Raining hard. Most of the staff had cleared out. She was finalizing minutes from a board meeting. He was sitting in his glass-walled office, tie loosened, top buttons undone. For once, he wasn't moving. He was staring at a photo on his desk. A woman with blonde hair, likely Isolde, his fiancée. When Asher stood to leave, he looked up. "You ever wonder if we're just pretending?" She paused in the doorway. He gestured toward the city, all of it. The suits, the perfect speeches, the carefully timed smiles. She hesitated. "I don't pretend. I just survive it." He smiled at that. "Stay a little longer." Her heart skipped, but she nodded. They talked, really talked, about college, about his mother's illness, about how he hated champagne but pretended to like it for events, about how Asher read cookbooks even though she rarely cooked. By the time she packed up her laptop, it was nearly midnight. She reached for her coat. So did he. Their fingers brushed. She froze. He didn't move away. Instead, he stepped closer, slowly, giving her time to stop him. She didn't. Their kiss was soft, careful, quick, but it broke everything. Asher didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of her small apartment. Her lips still tingled. Her mind spun in circles. What did it mean? Would it change everything? Would he even mention it tomorrow? She told herself it was a mistake. One kiss, nothing more. It happened. It shouldn't have. And now, they'd both act like it never did. But the next morning, the elevator ride wasn't quiet. Callan stepped in, alone. No phone in hand this time, just a quiet glance at her. "You okay?" he asked. Asha gave a small nod. Then he said, low enough for no one else to hear, "I haven't stopped thinking about it." That was all it took. The bubble they'd accidentally blown up the night before hadn't popped. It expanded, wrapped around them, and neither of them stepped away. The days that followed were electric in the most dangerous way. At work, they kept distance. No lingering glances, no long conversations in public. But late nights? That was theirs. They shared Chinese takeout on paper files. They argued over music. He taught her to like jazz. She taught him to sit still and breathe. And then, slowly, the kisses came back. At first, they were hesitant. His hand on the small of her back, her fingers brushing against his tie. But they grew, louder in silence, hungrier in tension, desperate, but always with care. He never once promised her anything, and she never once asked. But Asha felt the weight of something unspoken pressing between them. He still wore the engagement ring on his finger, a sleek platinum band that matched the diamond on Isolde Merin's Instagram. Asha didn't follow her. But sometimes, when loneliness struck, she'd peek. See her posed in red gowns and designer bags, always next to Callan, who wore the same stiff smile in every post. At night, Asha would be curled beside him on the office couch, listening to his heartbeat, and she'd wonder if he kissed Isolde the same way he kissed her. "You ever going to tell her?" Asha asked one night. He blinked at the ceiling. "Tell her what? That this," she gestured between them, "isn't nothing." Callan let out a soft breath. "I don't know," he said. "It's complicated." Asha nodded. "It always is." But in her heart, she knew, if a man was afraid to choose you publicly, then he'd already chosen someone else. Still, she stayed, not because she was weak, but because walking away from something unfinished felt worse than staying with something that wasn't whole. One afternoon, she felt sick. She thought it was stress, or takeout gone bad. But when it didn't pass for days, she bought a test. She didn't cry when the 2 pink lines appeared. She sat on the bathroom floor, silent, one hand on her chest, one on her stomach. Callan's child. Their child. She didn't call him. Not that day. Not the next. She waited for a moment that felt right. A moment where his eyes weren't tired, or his words weren't clipped from a long meeting. But that moment never came, because 2 days later, the internet exploded. Chicago Weekly posted a headline that made her knees buckle. Billionaire Callan Vaylor marries Isolde Merin in private Lake Geneva ceremony. Asha stood frozen in her kitchen, her untouched tea cooling beside her. She clicked the article. There he was, in a tailored black tux, smiling. And Isolde, beaming in white lace, her hand on his chest, displaying a ring so large it caught the flash from every camera. They looked happy. She looked erased. The tuxedo, it was the same one she helped him choose 6 months ago for a company gala. The cufflinks, hers. A birthday gift she saved for with 2 weeks' pay. Asha didn't cry. She turned off the TV, set her phone face down, sat on the edge of her bed and held her belly. It was still small, still quiet, still waiting, but Asha whispered, "We're okay," because she knew from that moment on, it would be her and the baby. Nothing more. The next morning, she typed out her resignation. No dose, no explanation. She slid it under her manager's door, cleaned out her desk, and walked out without looking back. Asha didn't want anyone's pity. She found a studio apartment on the south side, far from the glass towers. No skyline, no press, no memories of Callan's cologne in the elevator. She wore hoodies instead of blouses, tied her curls up instead of styling them. She took small admin gigs, remote, quiet, with no titles involved. Each day, she wrote in a journal, letters to her unborn child. She told the baby about strength, about silence, about how sometimes love isn't loud, it's in the act of staying when everything else leaves. She kept her circle tight. Her cousin Tasha came by often, bringing snacks and stories, but even she didn't know the father's name. Was it someone important? Tasha had asked once. Asha just smiled. Not anymore. Then came the phone call. 5 months had passed. Her phone buzzed, flashing unknown number. Asha almost didn't answer, but something in her gut made her swipe. Hello? There was a long pause. Then a voice she hadn't heard in months. Asha. It was hoarse, rough, almost broken. Her breath hitched. How did you get this number? I saw the picture. The ultrasound. Tasha posted it. Her cousin. Of course. Silence stretched again. It's mine, isn't it? He asked. She said nothing. Callan's voice cracked. I got married. I lied. But I never stopped. Asha ended the call. She didn't want to hear the end of that sentence, because it was already too late. Asha didn't expect him to call again. She thought maybe he got the message. Maybe her silence would be enough. Maybe he'd disappear, the way he did when he married someone else without a word. But Callan Valor didn't disappear. Not this time. 3 days after the phone call, there was a knock on her door. Not loud, not urgent, just... She peered through the peephole. Her stomach dropped. He stood in a dark hoodie and jeans, more undone than she'd ever seen him. In one hand, he held a bouquet of white tulips. In the other, a photo frame. The frame was hers. It had sat on her desk at Valor Industries for 2 years. Inside was a simple quote she loved. You can't keep what was never yours to begin with. On the back, in faded pen, was a note she had scribbled one night. You make the late hours feel light. She opened the door halfway. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know. Then leave. He didn't move. I just want to talk. Asha looked down at her belly, then back at him. Now you want to talk? Callan stepped back, gave her space. I made a mistake. She let out a dry laugh. No. You made a choice. He nodded, accepting it. I want to be part of our child's life. You want control. No, he said quickly. I want to be a father. I know I don't deserve grace, but I'm here, and I'm not walking away this time. Asha looked him dead in the eye. You already did, the moment you put that ring on her finger, and with that, she closed the door. He came again the next day. And the next, she didn't open the door. But he didn't leave angry. He didn't shout. He just stood there for a few minutes, then left flowers, or a care package, or groceries. No notes, no pressure, just presence. By the end of the week, she caved. She didn't open the door fully, but she let it swing halfway. You're not getting in, she said. I'm not trying to... She narrowed her eyes. Then what are you doing? Showing up. She exhaled, then muttered, Don't be poetic. It doesn't suit you. He smiled. Barely. She stared at him. You think groceries will fix betrayal? No. But maybe showing up consistently will remind you I regret it. She didn't say anything, but she didn't shut the door either. That was the first time they spoke without anger. The following weeks were strange. Callan didn't come every day, but when he did, he never crossed a line. He'd hand her prenatal vitamins, ask if she was feeling okay, offer to pay for her checkups. She declined. Sometimes, she watched him from the window as he waited, just standing under a tree, watching the sky, never texting or pacing. Once, he caught her watching. He didn't wave, just nodded. That quiet respect did something to her. One evening, her back ached so bad she could barely sit straight. She groaned, holding her side as she lowered herself onto the couch. A knock. She debated ignoring it, but something told her to open the door. Callan stood there with a small heat pad and a tub of almond butter ice cream, the exact brand she liked. "I figured you'd be in pain around this time," he said. "That's when my sister's back started giving out too." "You have a sister?" she asked, surprised. He nodded. "Older. She lives in Arizona." A beat passed. "I don't want anything from you tonight," he said. "Just sit. I'll heat this up, and you can curse at me if it helps." Against her better judgment, she stepped aside. He moved gently around her kitchen. It felt strange, watching this man, who once moved through boardrooms like a king, pour almond butter ice cream into a bowl like a humbled intern. When he handed it to her, she took it without a word. He pulled up a small ottoman and knelt behind her. "May I?" She hesitated, but the pain in her back overruled her anger. "Fine." His hands were warm. "Careful." She let out a shaky breath. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I know. You married someone else. I didn't love her." She turned, eyes sharp. "That's worse." He didn't defend himself. He didn't speak again. And for once, she let the silence do what words couldn't. Heal something small. One night, it all broke open. She had a meltdown. Not from hormones. Not from heartbreak. From fear. What if she wasn't enough? What if her baby grew up asking where their father was? What if she made another wrong decision by even letting him near? She collapsed on the floor in tears. Callan didn't speak. He sat beside her. And without asking, he let her cry into his shoulder. She felt the rise and fall of his chest. No hands wandering. No promises whispered. Just his presence. Strong. Still, quiet. That night changed things. Not dramatically, but enough for Asher to let him knock the next time. And leave the door unlocked. Callan didn't ask to stay, even after that night, when she broke down into his chest and cried until her breath hitched. He didn't assume he had a place. He stood, got her a blanket, and waited while she pulled herself back together. "I'll let myself out," he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face but never touching her skin. Asher looked up at him, eyes red and swollen. "You can stay a little longer." He didn't move. "Only, if you want me to. I wouldn't have said it if I didn't." He sat beside her on the floor again. Neither of them said anything for a long time. From that day forward, Callan came by every Wednesday. He never missed it. No matter the weather, no matter what meetings were on his schedule, no matter how tired he looked. Wednesdays became their rhythm. Sometimes he brought food, sometimes a book. Once, a baby blanket he saw at a local boutique. Light yellow, soft, with tiny stars embroidered into the corners. "I liked the stars," he said when she unfolded it. She didn't reply, but she folded it carefully and placed it beside the baby things she had slowly started collecting. They didn't talk about the past. They didn't talk about Isolde. And Asher didn't ask questions she wasn't ready to hear answers to. But Callan started opening up anyway, on his own terms. One evening, while rubbing her feet on the couch, he said, "My parents were married for 40 years. My dad cheated 3 times. She blinked. He always said it was complicated. That love and loyalty weren't the same thing." He paused. "I hated him for that." Asher looked down at her belly. "I'm not your father," Callan said, his voice low. "I don't know who you are yet," she replied, "but I know what you did." That truth sat between them, honest, raw, unpolished, and yet neither walked away from it. As her belly grew, so did their silent understanding. Asher let him attend one doctor's appointment. He showed up 10 minutes early, dressed down, cap pulled low, said nothing to the nurse, didn't speak out of turn. But when the heartbeat played through the monitor, she saw his hands tremble. "That's her," the doctor said. Callan froze. "Her?" Asher nodded. I found out last week. Callan wiped at his eyes quickly. A girl. Asha turned her head to the side. Does that change anything? He shook his head. It just makes it real. The media hadn't caught on yet. Callan kept it that way. He didn't breathe a word to the press. Didn't let his assistant schedule anything near the south side. Made sure Asha was off everyone's radar. She doesn't need to grow up with cameras in her face, he said once. Then maybe you shouldn't be her father, Asha snapped. Callan didn't fight back. You're right, he said, but I'm going to try anyway. He started therapy around the 7th month. Didn't say it out loud, but she found the appointment cards in his car one afternoon when he offered her a ride to the pharmacy. 3 times a week? She asked. He nodded. I didn't know you believed in therapy. I didn't, he said, but I believe I've messed things up bad enough to need it. That answer lingered. One night, during a quiet moment on the balcony of her apartment, Callan asked her a question that almost knocked the breath out of her. If things were different, if I hadn't married Isolde, do you think we could have worked? Asha didn't look at him. Does it matter? It matters to me. She folded her arms across her belly, feeling the baby shift beneath her ribs. I don't know, she said honestly. You never gave us a chance to find out. Still, she couldn't deny what was happening. He was trying, not with flowers or promises or grand gestures, with consistency, with quiet respect, with presence. Then one Sunday morning, the headlines changed everything. Sources confirm Callan Vaylor, filing for divorce from Isolde Merrin, Billionaire CEO, steps down temporarily amid personal transition. Asha stared at the screen in disbelief. She hadn't asked him to do that. She hadn't even hinted at it. Later that day, he knocked on her door like he always did. No words, no announcements. He just handed her a single sunflower and said, I want you to come as me, not someone hiding behind press releases. She looked at him, still stunned. You really filed for divorce? Yes. Why now? Because I wanted to stop pretending. Asha didn't say anything, not for a long time. But that night, when he offered to read to the baby from a children's book, she let him sit close. So close, she could smell his skin. Still no kisses, still no talk of love. But it was something. As her due date neared, Asha found herself looking at him differently. Not like the man who betrayed her, but the man who showed up. She watched how he talked to the baby through her belly, how he rubbed her ankles when they swelled, how he left when she asked, stayed when she needed, never overstepped. Respect started replacing resentment. Still, she didn't say she trusted him. She didn't need to. Her actions said enough. One morning, while folding baby clothes, she picked up the little yellow blanket he had gifted weeks earlier. She held it against her cheek. Soft, warm, familiar. And for the first time since everything began, she let herself imagine a future. Not with him, but with forgiveness. He married someone else, then showed up week after week, with nothing but quiet regret and open hands. Have you ever had someone hurt you deeply, then try to come back like nothing happened? This chapter isn't about grand apologies. It's about consistency, respect, and showing up without expecting forgiveness. Would you ever let someone like Callan back into your space? Or is a mistake like his unforgivable? Drop your thoughts in the comments, give this video a like if you're still watching, and subscribe for more stories that speak truthfully to the heart. The first contraction hit like a dull cramp. Asha barely flinched. She'd read enough to know early labor didn't mean immediate panic. She stood at the window, hands gently supporting her back as she looked out at the soft gray sky above Chicago. Everything felt calm, almost too calm. The baby wasn't due for another week, and her bag wasn't even fully packed. Still, her body was shifting. She breathed through the discomfort, walked to the kitchen, and poured herself a glass of cold orange juice. It helped. But something in her gut told her today wouldn't go as planned. Her phone buzzed again. Not a call this time. A text. From Tasha. Girl, check the news. Asha frowned. She tapped the link Tasha sent. expecting some local drama or political scandal. But what loaded on her screen made her throat close. Callan Valor and Isolde Merrin finalized divorce in private ceremony. Sources say he's been living quietly apart from the media, focusing on personal growth. Spotted near Southside multiple times in past months. Her face tightened. The article featured a side-by-side photo of Isolde at a luxury spa and Callan walking out of a Whole Foods in a grey hoodie. The same hoodie he wore last week when he brought her almond butter ice cream. They had noticed. The public had noticed. And now the speculation would begin. Her heart raced, but it wasn't fear. Not anymore. It was the sense that everything was about to change, whether she liked it or not. She backed away from the phone and sat down slowly. Her body throbbed again, stronger this time. The contraction was real, no longer a cramp. She stood up and walked to the bathroom, gripping the counter and staring at her reflection. Her cheeks were rounder now, her belly full. Her eyes, though tired, were steady. This was the moment she'd been preparing for, but she wasn't ready to call him. She didn't want her labor to be another scene in Callan Valor's redemption arc. She wanted it to be hers. Hours passed. The contractions came and went, still spaced apart. She called Tasha, who rushed over with a bag of snacks, chargers, a warm sweater, and every ounce of the love only a cousin raised like a sister could give. "You want me to call him?" Tasha asked gently as she rubbed Asha's shoulders. "No," Asha said firmly. "But what if—" "No." And that was the end of it. At the hospital, the nurses moved around her like clockwork. Vitals. Viet. Monitoring. "You're about 5 centimeters, the doctor said. "We're admitting you." Asha nodded, sweat beading at her temples. Tasha squeezed her hand. "You're doing amazing." She closed her eyes and whispered to herself. "We're okay, baby girl. Just me and you." A nurse stepped out to grab something from the hallway. When she returned, she wasn't alone. Asha opened her eyes and froze. There he was, Callan, standing just inside the doorway, holding his breath like he didn't know if he was allowed to take up space in the room. He wore a black hoodie and sweats. His hair was messy. His face looked like he hadn't slept in days. "I saw the article," he said quietly. "I figured it wouldn't be long." She stared at him. "I told you not to come. You didn't tell me anything. You weren't supposed to be here. I wasn't going to miss this." Tasha looked between them, then stepped out quietly, giving them space. The machines beeped steadily beside her. Asha winced again as another wave of pain surged through her back. She grabbed the rails on the bed and breathed deeply, counting like the nurse showed her. Callan didn't say a word. He moved to the side of the room, hands clenched, staying quiet. She wanted to scream at him. Tell him to leave. Tell him he lost every right the moment he chose another woman, the moment he made her carry the weight alone. But she couldn't speak over the pressure in her hips. All she could do was endure. An hour passed. The nurse returned, checked her again, and said, "You're at 8. Almost there." Callan's jaw tightened. "Can I do anything?" Asha didn't answer, but when the next contraction hit and her hands searched blindly for support, he stepped forward. She gripped his hand so tightly he winced, but didn't pull away. "You're doing so well," he whispered. "You're the strongest woman I've ever known." "Don't talk," she hissed through gritted teeth. He nodded. Silence returned. At 2:31 a.m., their daughter entered the world with a sharp cry that sliced through the sterile room like music. Asha sobbed, silent, breathless tears. Callan stood frozen, one hand over his mouth, eyes locked on the small wrinkled baby being cleaned by the nurse. "She's healthy," the doctor said. "Strong lungs." Asha leaned back against the bed, exhausted. Callan turned to her, voice shaking. "She's perfect." "She looks like me," Asha whispered. He nodded, wiping his eyes. "She deserves better," she added. He stepped closer, his voice raw. "I know." She looked at him. "I mean it. So do I." The room was dim now. The overhead lights had been turned down. Machines still hummed softly. The baby slept swaddled in a clear bassinet near Asher's bed, a pink cap snug on her tiny head. Callan stood near the window, barely breathing. He hadn't sat down, hadn't looked at his phone, hadn't even blinked much. His eyes kept drifting to their daughter like he was afraid she'd vanish if he turned away. Asher watched him quietly. She was sore, exhausted, but not angry. Not right now. There was something about watching a grown man crumble softly in the dark that silenced every loud thought in her chest. "You can sit," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned slowly, unsure if she was speaking to him. "There's a chair," she added. He nodded and pulled it close, sitting near her bedside, but not too close. "She has your nose," he said. "She has your mouth." Silence passed between them. But this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. "I signed the final papers yesterday," Callan said after a long pause. Asher didn't respond immediately. "I know what the press said," he added. "But it's done now. No more statements, no more photo shoots, no more pretending." She looked over at him, eyes tired but alert. "You didn't sign those papers for me?" "No," he said softly. "I signed them because I couldn't live with myself knowing I was trying to build a future while lying in one." Asher breathed out slowly. "She's not going to fix you, you know. I'm not asking her to." "Good." Another silence. Then Callan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, head bowed. "I know what I did, Asher. I chose wrong. I hurt you. I ignored your worth. And I didn't show up when it mattered most." Her lips pressed into a line. "I thought walking away would protect you, that keeping you out of the spotlight was the kind thing to do. But all I did was abandon you." "Yes," she said bluntly. He nodded. "I'm not asking you to forgive me tonight, or tomorrow, or ever if you don't want to. But I'm not going anywhere." She stared at him. "What does that mean exactly?" "I want to raise our daughter together, as much as you'll allow me. I'll follow your lead. I'll learn everything I need to learn. I'll show up, quietly, consistently, no expectations." Asher looked over at the bassinet. The baby shifted, let out a tiny yawn, and fell still again. The next morning, the nurse returned with forms and feeding schedules. Asher hadn't decided on a name. She had a few in mind, scribbled in the back of a notebook, but none of them felt like her daughter yet. Callan offered no suggestions. Instead, he simply said, "Whatever you choose, I'll support." She looked over at the sleeping baby, then at the sunrise breaking through the hospital blinds. "Amira," she said quietly. "It means princess." Callan smiled. "It fits." Later that day, Tasha returned, bursting into the room with snacks, flowers, and a soft blue baby blanket. But her eyes paused when she saw Callan still there, still quiet, still sitting in the same chair. She looked at Asher with a raised brow. "He stayed," Asher said. Tasha didn't reply, just nodded and gave Callan a short glance. He stood, respectful, and said, "I'll come back later. Thank you for letting me stay." He looked at Asher for a long moment, then down at Amira. "I'll never forget what you've done," he said softly. Asher's response was measured. "Don't tell me. Show her." 2 days later, they were discharged. Asher didn't ask for help, but Callan showed up anyway holding the car seat, installing it without instruction, making sure every strap was secure. He didn't ride with them. He took a separate car and followed quietly behind. When they arrived at her apartment, he carried the bags up but didn't ask to come in. Instead, he stood in the hallway, handed her the last of the items and said, "Call me if you need anything, or don't. I'll be nearby either way." Over the next week, Callan didn't try to visit. He sent groceries, had diapers delivered, paid for a night nurse without asking, but only after Tasha mentioned Asher hadn't been sleeping. Asher didn't text him back, but she didn't block him either. One quiet night, Amira wouldn't stop crying. Asher had tried everything: feeding, burping, rocking, soft music. Her body ached, her eyes burned, And in that exhausted haze, she stared at the crib and whispered, "I'm trying." Then she picked up her phone and scrolled to one name she hadn't opened since the hospital. Callan. She hesitated, then typed 3 words. "Can you come?" 15 minutes later, he was at her door. No questions, no overstepping. He walked in, took off his coat, and gently lifted Amira into his arms. He hummed, rocked, walked in slow circles. Asha sat on the edge of the couch and watched. Within minutes, Amira's cries softened to tiny hiccups. Her body relaxed. She fell asleep against Callan's chest. And for the first time in days, the apartment was still. Callan looked at Asha. She looked back. No smiles, no explanations, just an understanding. Asha didn't say much the morning after he helped with Amira. She offered him a cup of tea. He took it. They sat across from each other in her small kitchen. The baby monitor rested between them like a fragile wall. Callan sipped slowly, eyes lingering on the monitor's screen each time Amira shifted in her crib. His shoulders remained slightly tense, but he didn't try to force a conversation. And Asha appreciated that. She wasn't ready for words. Not after what they'd been through. Not after what she'd survived. The truth was, she was still figuring out who she was now. The woman who used to color-coordinate reports and manage investor meetings no longer existed. The woman who used to press her hand flat against her belly and whisper strength to a baby she never planned for. She was new, fierce in quiet ways, wiser maybe, but cautious too. After Callan left that day, she sat in Amira's room. The soft mobile above the crib spun slowly, stars and clouds drifting without sound. Asha picked up her journal. She wrote a letter. "Dear me, you did it. You walked through betrayal, heartbreak, silence and labor. And you didn't lose yourself. Even when you wanted to disappear, you stayed. You don't need anyone's approval, not even his. You're enough. You always were. And this little girl? She's already loved. Fiercely. You're not the same woman who cried in silence 6 months ago. That version of you left the moment your daughter opened her eyes. You can forgive. But you won't forget, and that's okay." She closed the journal and held it to her chest. Then she exhaled slowly and smiled. Not because anything was fixed, but because she wasn't broken. Later that week, she packed up a few boxes, old files, business books, high heels she hadn't worn in nearly a year. She moved them into storage. Her old self didn't live here anymore. Meanwhile, Callan kept his distance. He sent messages, but only once a day, nothing emotional, just updates. "I'm here if you need diapers. Doctor's appointment reminder, Thursday at 2. Heard about a new baby carrier. Want me to send a link?" Asha replied when necessary. Never with warmth, but never with anger either. She watched him from a distance. He didn't try to spin narratives in the media. He didn't defend himself online. When someone asked about the divorce during a podcast appearance, he simply said, "I wasn't the man I should have been, but I'm trying to become one now." That was all. No details, no pity party, just truth. She didn't tell him that, but she did. And slowly, something inside her shifted. One Thursday afternoon, as she buckled Amira into her stroller for a walk, she paused at the door. Her phone buzzed again. "Callan, it's sunny. Should be a good walk." She stared at the screen. Then, for the first time, she typed something that wasn't cold. "Asha, thanks. We'll be okay." A moment later, the reply came. "Callan, I know. You always are." She didn't reply, but she smiled. The walk through Jackson Park was peaceful. A few mothers smiled at her. One offered a bottle recommendation. Another admired Amira's dimples. Asha felt normal, not like a woman who had once been betrayed by a billionaire, not like someone carrying secrets, just a mother, pushing her daughter through sunlight and breeze, soaking up this moment in full. That night, Callan texted again. "I booked her first vaccine appointment. I'll be there unless you say no." Asha stared at the message for a long time. then typed, "Okay, you can come." She paused, then added, "But you're not holding her, unless you hold her right." Callan showed up early for the vaccine appointment. He stood outside the clinic door in a soft grey sweater, jeans and sneakers that looked new but worn just enough to be believable. No cameras, no entourage, no sleek car waiting out front. He carried a folder with Amira's insurance papers, printouts of the latest baby health guidelines, and a snack pack Asha once mentioned liking, tucked inside like a silent peace offering. Asha arrived 15 minutes later, stroller steady in front of her, Amira tucked under a soft pink blanket. Callan didn't speak until she did. "You're early," she said. "I didn't want to risk being late." She nodded. "You brought the documents?" He lifted the folder. She took it, checked every page. Everything was in order. They signed in together. Inside the pediatric clinic, Callan watched everything. How Asha asked questions, how she held Amira during the weigh-in, how she cradled her head when the nurse measured length. He didn't interrupt, but when it came time for the shot, and Amira's eyes widened right before, the needle touched her skin. Asha flinched harder than the baby. Amira wailed. Asha closed her eyes, breathing through the cry. And Callan, his face cracked. He reached out instinctively, but stopped halfway. Asha noticed. She handed Amira to him. "Support her neck." He did. He held their daughter against his chest, whispering quiet things Asha couldn't. "Ted here," his hand gently rubbing her back in slow, calming circles. Amira settled quickly. Asha blinked. She wasn't sure what stunned her more, the baby calming down, or how natural he looked. On the ride home, Callan walked beside the stroller instead of behind it. They didn't speak much, but when they reached her apartment steps, he paused. "I've been researching parenting styles," he said. She raised an eyebrow. He continued, "I want to respect how you're choosing to raise her, so I thought it would help if I knew your approach." Asha looked at him, caught off guard. "Why would you assume I've chosen one?" "Because you're intentional with everything." She blinked, then nodded slowly. "Gentle structure, safe routines, no yelling." "I can follow that," he said quietly. She didn't smile, but she didn't close the door in his face either. That weekend, he brought over baby wipes and formula, not the brand he wanted, but the brand she used. He didn't ask to come inside, but when Amira started fussing at the door, Asha sighed and said, "5 minutes." Inside, Callan didn't sit. He just stood by the window, gently rocking Amira in his arms while Asha heated a bottle. "Are you scared?" he asked suddenly. She turned slightly. "About what?" "Being a mom. Doing it alone." She looked at him. "I was, for months. Now I'm just tired." He nodded. "That's honest." She walked over and took Amira back into her arms. "I had no other choice." "You weren't here." "I know." Later, he stood at the door. "Next week is her 1-month checkup," he said. "Do you want me there?" Asha stared at him for a second too long. "Yes," she said, "but no speeches, no lingering looks. You're not winning points. You're showing up for your daughter. That's all." "Understood." She closed the door softly behind him. The following week, something strange happened. Amira laughed for the first time. It was small, quick, more like a sharp inhale with a giggle attached. But it was real. Callan was there. He froze. Then he looked at Asha with wide eyes. "Was that?" "Yes," she said. He crouched down and made the same face again. Silly, gentle, intentional. Amira laughed again. Asha bit her lip, trying to keep her emotions still. "You're good with her," she said. He didn't look up. "I wasn't sure I would be." "Well," she said softly, "you are." That night, after he left, Asha sat alone on the couch holding Amira, the baby's tiny fingers wrapped around her thumb. And for the first time, she allowed herself to think, maybe this doesn't have to be war. Maybe Kyo parenting can look like this: quiet support, no pressure, no power plays. Maybe. The next day, Callan sent a message. Would it help if I paid for a part-time nanny, so you could rest, work, or just breathe? Usher stared at it. She started typing, then stopped, then typed again. Send options. She has to come for a trial first. His reply came instantly. Already scheduled. Saturday. No pressure. You can send her away if you don't like her. She smiled. Barely. Saturday came. The nanny, Lena, was warm, soft-voiced, and clearly experienced. She didn't gush over Amira or talk down to Usher. She asked questions, took notes, gave space. After Lena left, Usher looked at Callan. She's hired. Good. Usher crossed her arms. This doesn't mean I trust you. I know, but it means I'm not fighting you. Callan nodded. That's all I've been hoping for. That evening, when he prepared to leave, Amira reached toward him, tiny fists curling in the air. He hesitated. Usher nodded. He picked her up slowly, gently, and she immediately pressed her cheek against his chest. He looked at Usher with something quiet in his eyes. Not pride, not sadness. Something else. A kind of thank you. Usher met his gaze for a long time, then turned away. Callan hadn't been back to the Billionaire Industries headquarters in over 2 months. He didn't miss it. Not the glass offices, not the boardroom tension, and definitely not the polished fake conversations that once filled his days. But that Tuesday morning, he stood at the front entrance in a charcoal coat, unshaven but composed. The sun reflected off the tall building that still bore his name, but it no longer felt like it belonged to him. He stepped inside. Every assistant's head turned. Some whispered. Others avoided eye contact. He didn't blame them. He hadn't just walked away from the company. He'd walked away from everything, including the engagement that once put him on every magazine cover in Chicago. Now, he was just a man trying to fix what he broke. In the boardroom, his COO, Myra DeLance, looked up when he entered. Didn't expect to see you here, she said. I didn't come to take over. I just need 30 minutes. She gestured to a seat. He sat down, set a thin folder on the table, and opened it. Personal leave extension. I want to stay on hiatus another 4 months. Myra blinked. You're serious? Yes. You're walking away from deals worth 9 figures, Callan. I'm walking toward my daughter. She tilted her head, searching his face for cracks. There weren't any. You're different, she said. He nodded. That's the point. Outside the boardroom, the whispers grew louder. But Callan walked out of the building without explaining himself to anyone. This time, he didn't care who misunderstood. Across town, Usher sat on the couch, bouncing Amira gently on her knee. The TV was on in the background, but she wasn't listening. She was scrolling through an email from a publishing client, trying to stay awake long enough to answer without sounding like she was sleep-deprived and surviving on almond butter toast. The doorbell rang. She frowned. It wasn't Callan. He never showed up unannounced anymore. She opened the door slowly. It was Lena, the nanny, with a small package. Delivery guy left this downstairs by mistake, she said, handing it over. It's from Billionaire Industries. Usher froze. Thanks, she said quietly, taking the small flat box. Inside, she opened it carefully. A plain white card lay on top. Her name was handwritten. Inside, the message read, "For your work, your steadiness, and your grace under fire. CV." She lifted the tissue paper. Underneath was a framed certificate with the Billionaire Industries seal. An acknowledgement of 5 years of quiet service. She hadn't expected it. Not from them. Not from him. Her fingers hovered over the glass. The gesture was small, thoughtful, private. It didn't erase the pain, but it respected it. And sometimes that mattered more. Later that night, Callan knocked softly on her door at exactly 7 p.m. She opened it halfway, Amira in her arms. You dropped this off? She asked. I asked the team to send it, he said. I should have done it sooner. You didn't have to. I know, he said. That's why I did. Usher looked at him for a moment longer. then opened the door wider. They sat quietly again, just like old times. Amira babbled in the corner, reaching for her toys. Asha spoke first. So, what now? Callan looked up. Now I take another step back. From what? The company, the chaos. Everything that kept me from showing up before. Asha leaned back. You're sure about that? Yes. I don't want to lead anything I can't protect at home first. She raised an eyebrow. You're quoting parenting books now? He smiled, small. Only the ones written by single mothers. That made her laugh. Just once. But it was real. After Amira fell asleep, Callan stayed a little longer than usual. They didn't talk much. They didn't have to. He helped clean bottles, fold a few baby blankets, took the trash out. Simple things, quiet things, things he would have thought beneath him months ago. Now, they were sacred. At the door, Asha walked him out. He paused with his hand on the knob. I know what I did, Asha, and I won't rewrite it. I wouldn't let you, but I am sorry. Every day. She didn't respond. He turned the knob, ready to leave. But then her voice stopped him. You're trying, she said. He turned back to her. Yes. She nodded once. Don't stop. 3 days later, Callan was sitting in the corner of Asha's living room, building. A baby bouncer with Amira watching from her playmat, like a supervisor on break. He was focused, tongue pressed to the inside of his cheek, trying to align the final 2 pieces without reading the instructions. Don't force it, Asha said from the kitchen. You'll snap the frame. I'm not forcing. I'm motivating. He looked up. I used to lead billion-dollar negotiations. Now I'm arguing with baby furniture. She smirked. This is the real test of manhood. Welcome. He chuckled. I'm flunking. Just as he tightened the last screw, his phone buzzed twice. He glanced at it, expecting a routine message from the lawyer handling his divorce paperwork. But the screen showed a name he hadn't seen in months. Isolde. Asha noticed the pause. Problem? She asked, drying her hands. Callan hesitated. Just someone I thought I'd never hear from again. You want to take it outside? He didn't move. Then the phone buzzed again. This time, a text. He opened it, slowly. I need to talk to you. It's urgent. I know you don't owe me anything, but this isn't about us. He frowned, brows pulling together. Asha stepped closer. You okay? He looked up. She wants to meet Isolde? He nodded. Says it's urgent, not about her. I don't know what that means. Asha leaned on the wall. Do you want to meet her? No. Do you feel like you should? Only because I want to close every door that could swing back open later. Asha was quiet for a moment, then said calmly, Then go. But don't bring her shadow back into my house. Callan met her eyes. I won't. The next morning, he met Isolde at a boutique hotel in the Gold Coast district. She looked like a stranger, gone were the designer gowns and blowouts. Her hair was tied back. Simple sweater, no ring, still polished. Still proud. But something was missing from her expression. Something sharp and self-assured. In its place, uncertainty. She didn't offer a hug. Callan didn't ask for one. They sat. I won't drag this out, she said. I found out I'm being audited. Someone submitted documents from the old Valor Foundation accounts with my name attached. Callan's jaw tightened. That's not my business anymore, he said. I know, she replied. But your name's still on some of the paperwork, as CO signer, from before. When we were doing the clean energy PR campaign, he leaned back. You said it was in your name only. She swallowed. It was supposed to be. But I think my father added you for credibility. Callan cursed under his breath. If this goes public, it will drag your name through it too. And Asha, he said, his voice low. Amira. Isolde lowered her eyes. That's why I came. He stood. I'll get a lawyer to shut it down. There's one more thing, she said quickly. He turned. I didn't leak the baby story, she said softly. I never told anyone. I saw the photos online, but I never said a word. He nodded once, then left. Back at Asha's apartment, Callan stood by the window long after she put Amira down for a nap. He hadn't said a word since walking in. Asha watched him carefully. You okay? No, he admitted. But it's not about you. Or her. It's about what I let happen years ago. Things I signed without reading. Decisions I let other people make. Will it affect Amira? I won't let it. That wasn't an answer, and they both knew it. But Asha didn't press. Instead, she poured him a glass of water and handed it over. You need a plan. I know. You need to tell your legal team everything. Already on it. And you need to stop blaming who you used to be. That made him pause. I'm serious, she added. The man in that corner building a baby bouncer, he's not the one who caused this. But if you let guilt keep steering, you'll crash everything again. He looked up at her, something raw in his eyes. I want to protect you, and Amira, from all of it. Then don't just protect us. Prepare us. Later that night, while Amira slept in her crib, Asha sat at the table with Callan. She opened her laptop and slid it toward him. Here, she said. What is this? A timeline. List of your public press mentions. Old board signatures. Financial names linked to Valor campaigns in the last 3 years. You pulled all this? I used to be your assistant, remember? He smiled faintly. She looked at him seriously. Let me help you. Not because I owe you anything, but because the less chaos in your life, the more peace in mine. Callan didn't respond right away. But then he said something that silenced her. I don't want to just fix my life anymore. He paused. I want to build one, with intention. Not around money, around people, around her. Around you, if you'll let me. Asha didn't reply. She just turned the laptop back toward her. Let's focus on the foundation first. He nodded. And when it's solid, she said, we'll talk about the rest. The cold air smelled like change. It was late fall in Chicago. The streets lined with amber leaves and sweaters pulled high around the neck. Asha stepped outside with Amira strapped to her chest, her breath visible in the crisp morning light. She wasn't rushing anywhere. That in itself was new. No meetings, no investor pitch decks, no deadlines, just a quiet walk with her daughter and a mind that no longer spiraled in regret. Behind her, Callan exited the building carrying the diaper bag like it was briefcase level important. You sure you don't want the stroller? He asked. She likes the wrap, Asha said. Feels like a heartbeat. Callan nodded. She clings to you like a second skin. She's allowed to, Asha said simply. She is, he agreed. They walked in silence for 2 blocks. Not awkward silence. Mutual, reflective quiet. They reached the park, found a bench, and sat. Amira dozed in the wrap, her little face tucked against Asha's chest. Callan stared straight ahead. I hired a forensic accountant, he said suddenly, to deal with the foundation mess. Asha looked at him. Isolde? Her father. He used my name as a backup co-signer on 3 campaign grants. 2 of them were flagged for inconsistency. Will it go public? I'm not sure yet. I told my lawyer if it does, we own it before the media can twist it. And if they try to drag Amira into it, they won't get near her. His voice had an edge then, the kind Asha hadn't heard in months. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She knew he meant it. Later that afternoon, back at the apartment, Lena the nanny finished tidying. Up the nursery while Asha reviewed Callan's notes on the legal case. You're more organized than I remember, she said. I hired a project manager to retrain me. She raised a brow. I'm serious, he added. If I'm going to build a different kind of life, I need different tools. She leaned back. You're trying hard. I have to. No, she said. You want to. That's different. That night, something changed between them. Not physically, emotionally. Asha was folding baby clothes on the couch when Callan reached over and gently helped her with a tangled onesie. Their hands touched. She didn't pull away. Why do you keep showing up? She asked quietly. He looked her in the eye. Because I don't want to be the kind of man who only shows up when it's convenient. And if I never love you again, then I'll still be here, because it's not about what I get from you anymore. She blinked. His tone hadn't flinched. No bitterness, no plea, just truth. She stood, gathering the baby clothes. I'll walk you out. He followed her to the door. He put on his coat. Just as he reached for the handle, she stopped him. Callan. He turned. Asha stepped closer. Not touching, just near enough to feel the space shrink. Don't wait for me to forgive you to start forgiving yourself, she said. He nodded slowly. Then he left. The next week moved with quiet rhythm. Lena took over the morning feedings. Asha caught a few more hours of rest. Callan arrived every afternoon at 3 sharp, never knocking more than once. If Asha needed space, he respected it. If she let him in, he followed her lead. Amira started to smile more often. Each time, Callan's face lit up like it was the first time. That Thursday, Asha invited him to stay for dinner, for the first time since the baby was born. Nothing fancy, roasted vegetables, soft rice, and grilled chicken. He offered to cook. She refused. He offered to clean. She didn't stop him. They moved like a team. Quiet, effective, familiar. And when the baby went down for her nap, the silence that filled the room didn't press. It's settled. You said something last week, Asha said, sitting across from him at the small dining table, about not waiting for me to love you again. He nodded. I've been thinking about that, she continued, because I'm trying to understand what love means now. After everything, Callan folded his hands together, his expression unreadable. I used to think love was about words, she said. Declarations, grand gestures, proving yourself in public. And now? He asked gently. She looked at him. Now I think love is about who you become when no one's looking. He swallowed. Then I've spent months hoping you'd notice who I'm becoming. I have. The honesty in her voice cracked something open. Callan looked down, quiet for a long time. I don't know what comes next, he said, but I've never been more certain that I want to be better. For her. And for you. Asha's voice was soft. I know. The baby monitor blinked. A soft sound echoed from it. Asha moved to go, but Callan stopped her. I'll get her, he said, already rising. She watched as he stepped into the nursery. She could hear his voice. Soft, low, rhythmic. He picked up Amira, rocked her gently, hummed something close to a lullaby. She couldn't make out the words, but she didn't need to. The tone said everything. It was the first time in weeks she didn't rush to soothe the baby, because someone else was doing it right, and she trusted him. When he returned, Amira was asleep against his chest. Asha reached for her, but Callan paused. Can I hold her just a bit longer? Asha nodded. He sat on the couch, baby curled against him, his eyes closed, breathing slow and even. And, Asha, she just watched. Not with resentment, not with regret, but with something new. Possibility. Later that night, as he prepared to leave, she walked him to the door. He paused there, turning slightly. I know I said I'm not asking for your love back, he murmured. But if it ever returns, I promise, I'll hold it better this time. She studied his face. You're still in love with me? She asked quietly. I never stopped. Asha stepped back, heart tight in her chest. But this time, she didn't run from the moment. I'm not ready, she said. I know, but I see you. He blinked, emotion flickering in his eyes. And that matters more than you realize, she added. When the door closed behind him, Asha stood in the hallway alone. But she didn't feel alone. Not anymore. She didn't forgive him overnight. She didn't fall back into his arms. But she started to see him again. And that's where healing begins. Have you ever tried to rebuild trust with someone who once shattered it? Or maybe you were the one asking for a second chance? This chapter wasn't about grand apologies. It was about presence, patience, proof. Would you let someone back in if they showed real change, or would you keep the door closed for good? Comment your thoughts below. Like if you've ever healed after heartbreak. And don't forget to subscribe. More chapters are coming, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Callan was never the background type. Before Asha, before Amira, before it all unraveled, he was the headline. The decision maker, the closer. But now, he was the man in the waiting room, the one who sat through baby checkups with quiet hands clasped together, the one who warmed bottles and wiped spit up without complaint, the one who brought groceries, fixed cabinet hinges, and left before dinner if she didn't invite him to stay. He wasn't just stepping back. He was learning how to show up. And Asha noticed. She didn't say it, not aloud. But the fact that she let him in, on her terms, was enough to keep him grounded. Until one Monday afternoon, when the peace broke. Asha had just finished feeding Amira when her phone vibrated violently on the table. Dozens of notifications. She frowned, picked it up, and opened her browser. There it was, spreading across every major media outlet. Ex-fiancé of billionaire Callan Valor under investigation, fraud, fake grants, and hidden files whistleblower claims. Valor's signature was forged, insiders say. Former assistant, now mother of his child, may be tied to internal fallout. Asha's stomach dropped. She clicked the article, her eyes scanning for her name. It wasn't spelled out. But they said enough. A former employee, who had a personal relationship with Mr. Valor, was allegedly privy to details of foundation accounts, though not involved in management. They had blurred the truth just enough to poison it. Asha's blood boiled. She wasn't shocked, but she was furious. Furious that after everything, she was still disposable in their narrative. Still, someone the public could twist and throw under a headline for clicks. She called Callan immediately. He answered on the first ring. "I saw it," he said before she could speak. "You said this wouldn't touch me," she snapped. "I'm handling it. You should have handled it before they dragged me into it. I didn't leak this." "I know you didn't, Callan," she said, voice cracking. "But your silence still put a target on me." He paused. "I'll fix it." "You better," she whispered. "Because this is our daughter's world too now. And I won't let your past tear it down." She ended the call. Then sat on the couch, Amira now fast asleep in her arms, her little fist curled near her mother's heart. By sunset, the headlines shifted. Statement released by Callan Valor. "Asha Langley is not involved. My actions, my responsibility." He had issued it himself. No PR firm, no assistant. The statement was simple, direct, protective. "I take full accountability for the legal decisions made under my name. No employee, especially not Ms. Langley, was ever involved in the financial operations being reviewed. Her name should not be in these discussions. Period. If you're looking to blame someone, blame me." Asha stared at the screen. No excuses. No spin. Just ownership. It was the first time she'd seen him handle the media like this, not as a man, desperate to salvage his name, but as a man focused on protecting hers. Later that evening, Callan didn't text, didn't call. But at 8:12 p.m., there was a quiet knock at the door. She opened it to find him standing there. No suit, no umbrella, just a box in his hand. "What's that?" she asked, not yet inviting him in. He held it out. "Everything tied to my past name. Deeds, legal letters, investment files. I'm cutting ties with anyone that risks touching you or Amira. You should know who we're dealing with." Asha took the box. Then she opened the door wider. Inside, she made tea while he sat with Amira on his lap. She cooed at him, gurgling softly as she stared up at his face. "Is this our life now?" Asha asked quietly. "Which part?" "The one where we wait for your past to make headlines." Callan shook his head. "No, that's not our life. That's my cleanup. Our life starts from here." She sat across from him. Your statement was good. It was the truth. She stared into her mug. You didn't owe me that. But you gave it anyway. He looked up at her. I owe you more than I can ever give. Usher met his gaze, and for once, she didn't look away. The following weekend was Amira's first small milestone gathering, a casual meet and greet for a few close friends and family. Not a party. No decorations, just a chance for loved ones to see the baby. Usher planned everything herself. Quiet, simple, no noise, no photos posted, no names tagged. She wanted this one thing to remain untouched by the world outside. Callan asked her only once, days before. Do you want me there? She hesitated, then nodded, yes, but no talking about us, just be her dad. That's the only role I want, he replied. The day of the gathering, Callan arrived 10 minutes early. He wore a soft blue shirt and brought a tray of baked plantains, his sister's recipe, he said. Usher had never seen him bring food to anything before. Tasha raised her eyebrows but said nothing. Her mother, who had flown in quietly from Atlanta, greeted Callan with a nod that said, I don't forget, but I'm watching. Callan greeted everyone with quiet respect. No charm, no speeches. He introduced himself plainly. I'm Amira's father. And that was it. He stayed out of the way, held Amira when asked, handled diaper duty when she fussed, watched Usher glow in conversation without inserting himself once. At one point, a woman approached Usher and whispered, He's changed. Usher nodded, yes. But that's not why I let him back around. Then why? Usher smiled faintly. Because he didn't ask to be let back. He earned it. The next day, something unexpected happened. A clip surfaced on a small Chicago podcast where Callan had been a guest, recorded a week prior but just published. The host asked him midway through the interview, What would you say is the most expensive mistake you've ever made? Callan didn't flinch. I married someone I didn't love, he said. The host blinked. That's honest. I thought public image mattered more than personal peace. I let timing choose for me instead of truth. And now? Callan looked straight into the camera. Now, I raised my daughter with the woman I should have never left in the shadows. The clip spread, quietly at first. It wasn't clickbait. It wasn't dramatic. It was real. And that made people pause. Usher sat on the couch that evening, phone in hand. The clip paused on Callan's face. He hadn't told her he recorded it, hadn't asked permission, hadn't tried to frame it as a grand gesture. She stared at the screen for a long time before setting the phone down and walking into Amira's room. She watched her baby sleep. The next day, she opened her door and found Callan standing there, not with groceries, not with legal updates, but with nothing. Just him. I saw the clip, she said before he could speak. I wasn't trying to make a moment out of it, he said. I just didn't want to keep saying things to you that I was too afraid to say to the world. Usher leaned against the doorframe. And what do you want now? She asked softly. Callan didn't rush. I want to keep showing up, even when no one's watching, even when you're tired of me trying. I want to be part of her life, and if you'll let me, yours. Usher studied him. Not his clothes, not his eyes, his presence. He wasn't asking for a slot in her life. He was already in it. She stepped back, opened the door wider. You want to come in? I do. That night, they sat close on the couch while Amira slept. No holding hands, no declarations, but the space between them was smaller. And something unspoken had shifted. Not love yet, but something honest enough to hold it when it came. The first time Usher let Callan hold her, not Amira, her, wasn't planned. It was late. The apartment was dark, quiet, warm with soft heat from the baseboard vents. Amira had finally drifted to sleep after hours of restless crying, her tiny body curled into her sleep sack. Usher stood in the kitchen, staring blankly at the kettle as it boiled. She hadn't spoken in almost 30 minutes, just moved, cleaned, reheated tea, poured it out. Callan stayed back, watching. Then he finally asked, gently, "Are you okay?" She didn't answer, didn't look at him, just said, "I feel like I'm holding too much. And every time I set one thing down, something else falls." The kettle clicked off. She didn't move. Callan took a step closer, then another. "You don't have to carry it alone," he said. She finally turned to him. Her eyes were tired. Her shoulders slumped. "I do," she said, "because even when you're here, it's still my body that labored, my name on the hospital form, my instincts that wake up in the middle of the night. I know. And I don't resent that," she continued. "But sometimes I feel like even your healing is something I have to manage." Callan swallowed hard. "I've never asked you to—" "You haven't," she interrupted. "But that's the problem. You haven't asked for anything. You just keep showing up, keep helping. And sometimes that feels like more pressure than if you had just disappeared." He didn't speak, didn't flinch. She sat down at the small dining table, her hands gripping the edge. "I want peace, Callan, but I don't know what that looks like with you in it." He stepped forward, slow, careful. "I don't want to be your peace," he said quietly. "I just want to stop being your wound." Her eyes shimmered. He stopped in front of her. "I can't undo what I did, and I won't ask you to carry the version of me who caused all that pain. I only want you to see who I'm trying to be now, who I am when I'm near you, when I'm near her." Her voice cracked. "I see you." Callan exhaled. "I'm scared to love you again," Asha admitted. "I'm scared too," he said, "because if I fail again, it won't just break you. It'll break me." For the first time in a long while, she reached for his hand. And for the first time since everything fell apart, he didn't hesitate. Their fingers laced together in silence, not for forgiveness, but for truth. The next morning, Callan made breakfast. Not perfectly. He burned the edges of the toast, forgot the salt in the eggs. But he made it, and Asha ate every bite. That week, he offered to watch Amira while Asha went to her first postpartum therapy session. She hesitated, then agreed. When she came back an hour later, she found them on the floor, Callan asleep, with Amira resting on his chest, both of them in the exact same position. Asha didn't speak. She just stood in the doorway and let herself feel safe. That weekend, she let him stay the night, not in her bed, not with a kiss, but on the couch, with clean blankets, a spare toothbrush, and, when she woke up at 3:27 a.m., to the sound of Amira stirring, Callan was already there, bottle in hand, humming to their daughter in the dark. Asha stood by the door and listened, not to the song, but to the quiet strength in his voice. Later that morning, as the sun rose, she sat beside him on the couch while he fed Amira the last few drops of milk. Neither of them spoke, but when he passed the baby to her and their fingers touched again, something in her chest unlocked. She looked at him. "I'm not promising anything. I'm not asking," he said. "But I'm no longer afraid to see what's next." Callan nodded. "Then we'll go slow." "No," she said. "We'll go steady." The apartment was dim and quiet. Amira had finally gone down for the night. Her soft breathing filled the baby monitor, steady and calm. Asha stood in the doorway to the living room, her fingers loosely holding a warm mug of tea. Callan was on the couch, legs stretched out, his head tilted back slightly. He looked tired, but in a way that felt earned. "I thought you'd gone to bed," he said, opening one eye. She walked over slowly. "I couldn't sleep." He shifted, made space on the couch. Asha sat beside him, close, but not touching. They sat like that for a while, the kind of silence that doesn't beg to be filled. Then Callan spoke. "She's growing fast." "She is," Asha replied. "She'll outgrow that bassinet soon. I can build the crib," he offered. Asha glanced at him. "You'll follow the instructions this time?" He smiled faintly. "Only if you promise not to supervise too closely. I make no such promises." Another long pause passed. This one hummed with something deeper. Asha leaned back, her shoulders brushing his. She didn't pull away. Callan looked down at her hand resting near his. Their fingers touched. Brief, intentional. Her voice was low. "Can I ask you something? Anything. When you were with her." She paused. "Did you ever think of me?" He didn't look away. "Yes. Every day. Every time I smiled in public, I thought of the silence that waited when I got home." Asha nodded slowly. "I hated you," she whispered. "I hated myself more." Another silence. But this one pulsed. Thick with emotion. With unsaid things. Asha set her mug down, then turned to face him. "You've been showing up," she said. "Not just as Amira's father, as a man." He waited. "I'm not the same woman you left behind. I know. I'm more guarded, less soft, and I don't trust easily anymore." "I don't expect you to," he said. "But I'll keep showing up, even if you never let me all the way back in." She exhaled, her voice shaking slightly. "I don't know if I'm ready to love you again." He leaned in, not to kiss, just to listen. "But I miss what we could have been." Before all the noise, Callan's reply was quiet. "Me, too." Asha reached for his hand. This time, she didn't let go. "I don't want promises. Then I won't give any. I want presence, clarity, honesty. You'll have all three." She met his eyes. "I want to take one step forward," she whispered. He searched her face. "How far?" She leaned in. Not rushed, not desperate, just close enough to feel his breath. And then she kissed him. Soft, slow, warm. A kiss that wasn't about passion or apology. A kiss that said, "I see who you're trying to be." He didn't deepen it. He let her lead. And when she pulled back, her eyes didn't waver. Callan didn't speak. He didn't have to. Later, they sat in silence again, her head on his shoulder, his fingers tracing circles on the back of her hand. No labels, no rush, just a moment they hadn't had in a long, long time. Peace with each other. It started with breakfast, just scrambled eggs, toast and cut fruit. But it was the first time Callan made a full meal in Asha's kitchen without asking. She came out of the bedroom with Amira in her arms, her robe tied, loosely at the waist, hair still pinned back from the night before. She blinked, surprised at the smell of real food and the soft rhythm of a jazz playlist humming from the Bluetooth speaker. "You're cooking now?" she asked. Callan, flipping toast with too much confidence, smiled. Trying. She placed Amira in her bouncer by the window. "You do realize I have preferences, right? No butter on toast, no salt in eggs. Half-sweet tea." She raised a brow. "So you've been paying attention to everything," he said. They sat together, just the three of them. No tension, no watchful silence. Just a baby babbling softly while her parents passed the butter and took turns checking for crumbs. It felt still, not forced, not perfect, but safe. That week, they started falling into rhythm. Callan came by every morning. Not for show, not to win points, but to help. He changed diapers, folded laundry, took Amira on stroller walks so Asha could nap or write or just breathe. And he never crossed lines. He didn't ask to stay the night again. Didn't hint at another kiss. He was present, but never presumptive. And Asha felt herself slowly, cautiously, relaxing. On Wednesday, Lena took the afternoon off. Callan offered to cover. "I don't need a sitter," Asha said, holding Amira on her hip. "I'm not a sitter. I'm her father," he replied. "Go do something for yourself. An hour. That's all I'm asking." She hesitated. "You trust me with her," he added. "I know you do." She finally nodded. 1 hour. She left with no makeup, hair tied back, just a hoodie and flats. Walked to a bookstore. Bought tea. Sat on a bench. For the first time in a long time. She exhaled. When she came back, the apartment was clean, Amira was asleep, and Callan was organizing a new storage bin for the baby's clothes. I think I forgot how light I used to feel, Asha said, setting her keys down. Callan looked up. You looked lighter when you left. She smiled. Not big, but real. That night, as they sat on the couch watching a rerun of a show they both used to love, Amira nestled between them. Asha spoke without warning. I used to be afraid of needing you. Callan stayed quiet. I thought if I let myself need you, I'd lose myself again. He turned slightly but didn't speak. She continued, but now, I think needing someone isn't weakness. It's choosing softness without fear. He looked at her then. You're safe with me now, Asha. She nodded. I'm starting to believe that he didn't kiss her, didn't pull her in. He just let the moment settle. Because the more he didn't reach for her, the more she started reaching for him. It started with a simple question. They were sitting on the floor, folding laundry while Amira slept, when Callan asked, Have you thought about school yet? Asha glanced at him, one of Amira's socks in her hand. She's 3 months old. I know, he said, but the good ones have wait lists, especially the smaller programs, private, Montessori. Asha raised an eyebrow. You already looked? He gave a sheepish shrug. I started reading. They have these play-based models now, gentle learning, no pressure. She smirked. You're quoting parenting blogs? Obsessively. She paused. I thought we were still figuring out co-parenting. We are, he said. But planning doesn't mean pushing. I just want us on the same page. That word, us, didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt grounded. Later that night, she found a printed folder on the kitchen counter. Asha flipped through it. 3 potential early childhood programs organized by neighborhood, tuition, teaching philosophy, and distance from her apartment. She smiled to herself. This wasn't the man who once let his assistant schedule meetings with no context. This was a man who had learned to think about what a child would need, and what her mother might care about too. Over the next week, their rhythm became so natural it scared her. Every time she thought she'd hit a wall with him, he found a new way to respect the boundary, or help her remove it herself. She told him once, You used to take up space. He nodded, not offended. I know, and now, you wait to be invited in. That's how it should have been all along. One evening, after putting Amira to sleep, Asha stood by the window while Callan washed bottles in the kitchen. The city buzzed faintly outside, horns, voices, life happening in the distance. She turned. You want to talk about the kiss? He looked up slowly. Only if you want to. I do. He dried his hands and joined her by the window. It wasn't a promise, she said. It was a moment. I know, but I don't regret it. His eyes softened. Neither do I. They stood in silence again, the soft hum of the bottle warmer the only sound between them. Then she said, I've been thinking about what it would mean to try again. With you. Callan stayed still. I'm not ready to start over, she continued, but I'm ready to explore what peace might look like, with you in it. He let out a slow breath. Then I'll meet you wherever you are. Every day. That weekend, they had their first dinner out together since everything broke. No press. No event. Just a quiet table tucked into a neighborhood bistro where the waitress recognized Asha and smiled without judgment. Callan didn't pull out grand speeches or gestures. He let her talk, listened when she shared about her postpartum therapy, about the grief of losing the version of herself who once believed in love without proof. He didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix it. He just said, I see her, I see you, and I think you're even stronger now. That night when they returned, Asha walked him to the door as usual. But before he could reach for the knob, she touched his wrist. I don't want you to leave tonight. Callan's eyes lifted slowly. I want you to stay. His voice was careful. Asha, I'm not asking for intimacy, she said. I'm asking for presence. He nodded. Then I'll stay. They didn't sleep in the same bed, but he curled up on the couch with Amira's baby blanket pulled up to his chest, the soft hum of the monitor beside him. And Asha, in her room, slept deeper than she had in months. Asha stood at the mirror, adjusting the sleeves of her soft beige sweater. It was one of those quiet mornings where the world felt unbothered. No emails, no calls, no headlines. Amira's giggles echoed faintly from the living room, where Callan was entertaining her with an empty box and a wooden spoon. She watched herself. Not for vanity, for recognition. She looked different now, not because of motherhood, but because of clarity. There were fewer questions behind her eyes, less second-guessing. She had walked through abandonment, loneliness, postpartum pain, and still stood. And in the reflection behind her shoulder, she saw him. Callan, sitting cross-legged on the floor in a white tee, laughing as Amira waved the spoon like a queen granting him royal punishment. It didn't look like survival anymore. It looked like life. Later that afternoon, while Amira napped and the apartment settled into its usual stillness, Asha made tea. Callan sat at the dining table, glancing over a mock-up of a non-profit project he'd quietly started, focused on providing legal aid to low-income families navigating custody and paternity support. He hadn't told anyone publicly yet, not even the press, just her. When she placed the mug in front of him, he looked up. "Thank you." She sat down across from him. Let the silence linger for a moment. Then, "I've been thinking." He set the paper down. "About what?" "About how quiet you've become." He tilted his head slightly. "You used to fill every room," she said. "You used to lead with charm and power. Now you sit in silence and watch people more than you speak." He nodded, listening. "I don't miss who you were, but I'm still learning how to be with who you are now." "That makes two of us." Asha reached for her cup, but didn't drink. "I'm not afraid of loving you anymore," she said. His gaze sharpened. "But I'm afraid of needing you again." Callan's voice was low. "What if needing me doesn't mean giving up yourself? Then I'll need you carefully." He reached for her hand on the table. She didn't pull away. "I'm not perfect," he said, "but I'm present, and I'm willing to relearn everything, love, parenting, partnership, if it means building something real with you." She looked down at their hands. His thumb brushed gently over hers. "I think I'm ready," she said softly. "For what?" "To stop pretending I don't want this." That night, after Amira's bath, they sat on the couch side by side. The baby lay curled between them, slowly drifting to sleep. Callan gently placed her in the bassinet. When he turned back, Asha was standing in the hallway, waiting. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. He followed. In the bedroom, nothing was rushed. They didn't tear at clothes, didn't whisper promises. They simply moved together, slow, intentional, patient. Asha traced the scar near his collarbone, something she had never noticed before. Callan kissed her shoulder, not with hunger, but reverence. Their bodies met like forgiveness, not for what had happened, but for what could finally begin. Later, wrapped in quiet warmth, they lay face to face. Asha spoke first. "This wasn't about fixing the past. I know. This was about choosing the present." Callan nodded, brushing her cheek gently. "And I'll choose it again tomorrow." The next morning, the air carried a kind of stillness that comes after deep honesty. Asha woke early, sunlight brushing across her bare shoulders. Callan was still beside her, one arm stretched lazily across the bed. His breathing was even, lips parted slightly, his face boyish in rest. She watched him for a while, not out of longing, but peace. Then, as quietly as she could, she slipped from under the covers, pulled on a soft robe, and walked into the nursery. Amira had woken up already, wide-eyed and busy kicking at her blanket. The moment she saw her mother, she squealed and reached upward with both hands. Asha scooped her into her arms and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Good morning, baby girl." Amira responded with a soft coo, resting her cheek against Asha's chest. In that moment, holding her daughter close, Asha knew this was the beginning of something new. Not a return to what was lost, but a step into what could be made now, with patience, trust, and daily effort. By mid-morning, Callan joined them in the kitchen. He kissed the back of Asha's head, then took Amira into his arms. She reached for his chin immediately, grabbing at his light stubble and laughing when he made silly faces. "I never thought I'd be this guy," he said. Asha poured coffee into 2 mugs. "What guy?" "The one making pancakes with a baby on his hip and no board meeting in sight." "You could still have both." "I don't want both. I want balance. I want her to know I was here, not just some shadow passing through." Asha handed him his coffee and nodded. "Then let's build something where none of us have to lose ourselves to be loved." They didn't announce anything. No press statements, no glossy family photos. They simply lived. They moved slowly, dated again, took long walks, shared late-night tea, held hands more. Callan started volunteering legal services through a quiet firm he funded, and Asha began hosting weekend meetups for new mothers, support circles that focused on healing, not just survival. Amira grew into her giggles, into her curls, into her bright, curious gaze that mirrored her father's intensity and her mother's calm. Their apartment shifted too, not with grandeur but intimacy. Framed drawings, quiet music, open windows, and laughter. So much laughter. One evening, Asha stood at the windowsill, watching the lights of Brooklyn come alive. Callan walked up behind her, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Do you miss anything about the life before?" She thought for a moment. "I miss believing I had to prove myself to be loved," she said, "because now I know I never needed." He wrapped his arms around her waist. "And I miss thinking success could replace connection, because now I know I was starving in the middle of a feast." They stood in silence, the city buzzing below them. "I want to raise her right," he whispered. "We will," Asha said. "Not with perfection, but with honesty." Fast forward a year later. Asha was now managing her own wellness studio, small, intentional, and deeply rooted in community. She had built it from experience, not theory. Women showed up because they felt seen, heard, held. Callan had merged his firm into a private equity group that prioritized social entrepreneurship. He worked less, but impacted more. And every evening, they returned home to the same thing: warmth. Amira, now toddling and wild with energy, had begun to speak. Her first word? Home. It wasn't a place. It was them. One night, after dinner, Asha took out a letter. It was folded neatly in an envelope, worn at the corners. "I wrote this the night you left," she said. Callan stiffened, his hand pausing mid-reach for the dishes. "I didn't send it, but I want to read it now." He nodded and sat down, listening. Asha opened the paper and began, "Callan, if you're reading this, it means I let you go. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Because the woman I'm becoming can't live in the shadow of a man who doesn't see her. But if someday you wake up and realize what you walked away from, remember this. I loved you hard. I loved you whole. And I still walked away, not because I lacked love, but because I finally learned to love myself more." She folded the letter back and looked up. Callan's eyes were glassy. His voice broke. "I see you now. Every piece. And I'm never looking away again." Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't the ones that start perfect, but the ones that survive the fall. Have you ever rebuilt love from the ruins? Have you ever chosen forgiveness, not because they deserved it, but because you did? What part of Asha and Callan's journey did you feel in your own life? The heartbreak? The healing? The hope? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Your support helps us keep telling stories that remind us healing is not weakness. It's power.